So here we are. We are on the backside of a major pandemic. We've got an economy that is flirting with a potential Great Depression. We've got different government programs, rental forbearance programs, the CARES Act, other items that are beginning to come to a close here very soon. And to compound on top of that, we've got a pandemic that is raging in this country that does not show signs of slowing down. And quite the contrary, looks like it will be growing. We never really made it past the first wave. And on top of that, businesses are now having to shut down yet again. So it feels like, and if you were to turn on the news, and I've had to stop doing so, it feels like we're at a tipping point. It really does. I've had conversations with people recently, and there's a general sense of where are we going with this? What's next? And, I've done a couple of videos on my channel talking about Great Depression, how to prepare, things to look for. And unfortunately, those are the types of videos that are scoring really well. I think it shows very much what's on people's minds and what is concerning people. If you had told me at the beginning of the year, turned January 1st, that by the middle of the year, we would be on the precipice of potentially hitting a Great Depression yet again in our country's history, I would have been very hard pressed to believe that. Obviously, we saw signs of the COVID-19 picking up in China around that time period, but there was a general sense of it won't hit us. It will be able to, this won't be us. This won't happen to us. And here we are. We're at the middle of the year, and it seems like every month is apocalyptic bingo. What's next? And again, on top of that, the signs, the discussion of a Great Depression are no longer relegated to the fringe of, oh, this is far out of the range of possibilities, far out of the realm of possibilities. You're now seeing this conversation more or less become a mainstream conversation. Again, as I mentioned and alluded to earlier, different programs that the government has in place to protect the general population, different stimulus programs like the CARES Act. A lot of these things are going to be coming to an end. People are unfortunately now having to tap into their retirement program because of the record unemployment that is on the same level as the Great Depression. While there have been some positive signs of the job market picking up, a lot of that may be for naught if we have to slip back into closing things down. I just don't know what the impact will be and if our country can really survive another round of closing businesses, things having to close down yet again. There was an article written, and I'll provide a link to it, by Andrew Yang. If you remember him, he was one of the Democratic nominations running for the presidency, or rather for his party's nomination. And he wrote an article, it wasn't too long, but I'll again put a link to it, expressing his concerns of sliding into a Great Depression and things that we can do to prevent it. A lot of it comes down to the necessity, and one of his, primary talking points on his platform was, different types of programs that ensure people have a monthly income. And that's one of the things that he's proposing now again, is that there's a minimum, I forget the exact term off the top of my head, but, an income that everybody would have on a monthly basis, depending on your level of income. You would have a guaranteed income. And on top of that, we've had the protests that have been recently, hammering our nation. It doesn't seem like you really hear much about it anymore. That's not really gripping the headlines, but tensions obviously are still high within our country. Does it take turning on the news too much to, again, see different cases where people are, freaking out in public? They're becoming extremely angry, agitated, different conflicts arising. I don't know if it's just because of proliferation of cell phones with cameras, or if that's just the general sense of what's happening in our country. You really get a sense that people are on edge right now. And then you throw on top of that the issue of masks, wearing them, whether it's you choose to or not. That's becoming another political issue that's causing a lot of tension, a lot of frustration, a lot of anger between individuals. On one side, you have people that are choosing to wear it. and they see those that are not as, potential spreaders, and then you see people on the other side that see the other ones as, I don't know. It's becoming more and more political, and again, there's tensions that are created because of it. Myself personally, the more, and I rarely venture into public anymore simply because of, the possibility of catching this and what the impact could be. I've stated this before, when I go out, I'll be wearing N95 masks solely moving forward. I had a subscriber that was kind enough to send me a cloth mask, or several that he created and made himself. It was an extremely kind act, and I use those for a long period of time. But if everybody doesn't wear a mask, then you have to assume you've got to wear a mask at the level of something like an N95 or equivalent or stronger to protect yourself. Again, if we see another surge of this coronavirus, unfortunately, we're just going to see mortality rates continue to climb. We're going to see worker productivity, which is a key indicator of economic health. We'll continue to see that decline as well as infection rates rise. So not only is it going to impact businesses, but again, the ability for people to be able to work is going to become problematic. I am fortunate that I work from home. I have for the last about 14, 15 years, and I feel really bad for those that have to get out and have to go into the general population. They don't have a choice. And on top of that, the time that it takes to recover from COVID-19 is significantly longer than the common flu. Sometimes it takes months. I've read articles of people that are still months later still recovering from it. It's taken the wind out of their sails. A lot of younger people that thought they were bulletproof, they contract this and it changes them radically. We have some friends that were impacted by it, and again, their story is very similar. They're just not recovering very quickly. The thing I think that really concerns me at the moment is the hospitals are already becoming overloaded. In the South, in Texas, you're beginning to see ICUs already hitting at 100%. And that was a concern at the beginning of the year, is that if we don't have enough equipment, if we don't have enough beds, the thing that most people don't even realize is beds is not the only issue. If our staff is understaffed, if we don't have enough people, if they get sick and they're no longer able to work, again, if these things start stacking and we haven't even hit the typical flu season, which hits in the fall. I did a video a while back talking about the Spanish flu and the second wave, which was worse than the first, and the third was worse than the first, but not as bad as the second. And the scary thing is our first wave is still climbing. We really even haven't moved past the first wave. So you start doing the math and you start adding all these things up and looking, and I think there's really a strong potential we'll see, a slowdown, or at least a strong possibility that businesses are going to have to close down again. I live in Riverside County here in California, and we're already seeing a lot of businesses having to close back up again. I believe in San Diego County, down south of us, they're still able to operate because people are taking precautions. They're wearing masks. They're doing the things that are helping to slow down the spread. But in our county, it became, a political issue, and people are choosing not to, and we're seeing a pretty good uptick of, illnesses, and businesses are, as a result, having to shut down again. So you add all those variables up, and then you throw on top of it the uncertainty that I feel like we'll probably face this fall with the presidential election. There's people, obviously, it's becoming such a deeply divided issue. This presidency, there's so much, I think, on the line. You're seeing people dig in so much on both sides, and no matter who wins, I think you're going to see some fallout on either side. If anything is proven to, or anything that we've been able to observe the last few months, both sides are, people are pretty dug in on some issues. And I think depending how this thing plays out this fall in this election, I think we have a strong potential to see things get even more challenging. I don't know how else to phrase that. But all that to say, a lot can happen, obviously, between now and November. And if we continue on this path, I think we're going to see some challenging times ahead. The economy, we're going to see, between that, the illnesses spreading. I've been stocking up over the last few months on filters, on making sure we have enough masks for everybody in our family. I'll post the links in the description section, the comment section below, if you want to see the different options. I've looked at different, whether they're expensive or cheap, I've got both options. And if you're interested in either option, I'll put links in the description section below again. I would encourage you, while you can, to pick up what you can. At a bare minimum, N95. If it's nothing, all you can afford is a cloth mask or a bandana, use something. But I think prepare. That's the word that keeps coming to my mind, prepare for this fall. What should you be doing now? What I'm personally doing now, I'll share what I'm doing now, is I'm preparing by being ready to stay in place potentially for the remainder of the year. If this kicks up, if we're seeing more and more cases, especially during the fall, if the flu season picks up, again, the flu season alone has a huge impact on our hospital, our medical system. And again, you throw that on top of this particular issue with COVID-19, I just don't see a scenario where this works out well. Again, as I stated earlier, we really haven't gotten past the first wave. And if we look at the second wave, I think there's going to be challenges. At the time of the recording of this video, we're a little over 125,000 deaths. And I'm reading different reports that even that number is severely underreported. So yeah, it's going to be challenging this fall, to say the least. With the seasonal increase of influenza, it's just going to exacerbate the coronavirus problems, and it's going to cause confusion and panic, bottom line. And again, what am I doing personally? Apart from picking up additional gear, making sure we have enough masks, enough filters to get us through this fall, we're making sure our food and water storage options are topped off. I'll be adding more. You may ask, why water? Why would you store more of that? If the system, again, the workers are not able to go in, if the different systems in place begin to have problems because there's understaffed, I just don't know what the impact is going to be to our water systems. Again, I'm trying to be optimistic, but I'm making sure that we have a fallback in place, that if the systems aren't up for handling what's happening, we will be able to take care of ourselves. At a minimum, get a water filter if you haven't done so. There's some that are affordable, starting at $20 up to obviously as much as you want to spend. Gardening, we've been actively gardening. If you haven't even started gardening, by the way, you can start now and prepare for the fall season. My wife, she really took it upon herself to dig into gardening, to learning it, and we're having a lot of success. Things aren't growing as quickly as we want, but now that things are warming up, we're starting to see more and more growth, which is encouraging. It's going to be something that will take us years to develop a skill set at the level that I believe will put us in a good position of having enough food to take care of our house. I mean, we're not going to be able to do that anytime soon. We're really going to be relying upon our food storage, but having gardens to supplement, whether it's providing enough nutrition, to getting that out of the garden. I'm really looking at that as not, again, the primary, but as a supplement and a very important part of our supplementing system, to making sure that we have our bases covered from a nutritional standpoint. One of the things that we're doing is we're going to be installing a whole house propane generator from Generac. They're not cheap, but what I'm looking at is making sure, again, as I talked about earlier, if different systems begin to fail, that we have an option to make sure that we have power. Again, we're also heading into the fire season here in California, so for me, that's a very important thing. Typically during the fall, around about August or so, when the fires start kicking up, they have to start turning off power for various reasons. And some of the things I never thought that I would really have to, at this point, again, if I looked at the beginning of the year where I thought we'd be at this time of the year, it's just not where we are. I'm beginning to, having to pull out my firearms, check them, make sure the oil, make sure they're ready to go. I'd love to talk about firearms more on this channel, just because of YouTube's policies, demonetization. Essentially, they put you on a list once you begin to talk about them more and more. You're kind of blacklisted, so to speak. I've seen channels that grew quickly and they get all their they were demonetized across the board because they talk about firearms. So, apart from saying that, that's all I'll say on that issue. But just, if you can, prepare. One of the things that I never really thought I'd be talking about, at least on the channel up to this point, is body armor. I've kind of hinted at it a few times in the past. We do have some body armor, but I will be picking up more. I'm going to begin to look at different NVG, night vision options, night vision goggle options. And again, these are things that I just didn't think at this point in my life I'd have to begin to prepare for. And I feel like the timeline of preps that I've got to consider are beginning to move up faster. If you've been following this channel for a while, you know I used to live on some land. I just sold it recently and I moved back to suburbia, so I'm truly city prepping again. But I'm going to begin to look for land just over the border in Arizona, probably looking at the Phoenix area. But I'm going to begin to prepare that if we have to bug out, if we have to head out, if things fall apart. Again, the riots, they were nowhere near us when things were hitting. There were some riots in LA and stuff like that, but we're far from that area. But I feel like right now, and this is, I had a conversation with a friend of mine the other day. We were talking about what it was like going through September 11th. At that time, I was 25. And when September 11th hit, it felt like a punch to the gut. You knew what was coming. It hit. It was hard. Well, you didn't know what was coming, but it hit and it hit hard. And over the next few days, you were kind of uncertain what's coming next. Is there going to be another terrorist attack? At that time, social media really wasn't a thing. And you really relied upon your news, turning on the TV or going online and studying to see what's happening. But there was a sense of, hey, this is kind of done. We can move on. I don't think move on is the right phrase, but you had a sense that it was over. It hurt. We were trying to heal. We were angry, but it was behind you, right? Now I feel like, I don't know if you've ever had a dream where you fall and it, causes you to wake up and jump. I feel like that feeling in your dream, right? Where you're just falling and, you're just falling and falling. And it almost kind of feels like that right now. Every month is, I've jokingly said this in the past on the channel, is it feels like apocalyptic bingo every month. You just never know what is going to come each month. Here we are in July, fingers crossed, nothing major happens. But unfortunately, if there's any indicator with the coronavirus beginning to, again, we never really get out of that first wave. We're beginning to see the climb again and again. I feel like that's what we're going to have to deal with this month. Again, businesses are closing down in my area, and I'm sure different people around the United States are going to experience the same thing. But what I was saying earlier is I feel like we're in a sense of free fall. And that's the hard thing is when you know what's coming next and you know what's behind you, it's easier to move forward, right? But when you don't know, when things are kind of foggy and it's not clear what's happening next, it creates a sense of uncertainty. That's not a comfortable position to be in. And I think that's what's challenging for where we are as a nation right now. As preppers, what we prepare for is the unknown. It's, again, a year ago, people would have, and oftentimes relegate the prepping community to, the fringe as the crazies. But that's really no longer the case. People are beginning to wake up to the reality that, not everything is guaranteed. I remember, when this first hit, going to the store when it all first started happening and seeing the fear, hearing stories from people that are like, hey, I just left Costco and I decided not to go in because people are literally stampeding in the parking lot, running to the door. And I remember hearing stories like that, and I just never thought that would be a story I'd hear anytime soon in my lifetime. Again, as preppers, we prepare for the worst, but again, starting off at the beginning of the year, things were looking great from a lot of different angles. So, what's coming next? I have no idea. I think the next 6 months are going to be challenging, to say the least. I said that at the beginning of this year, and, unemployment, different things have hit us, and a lot of these jobs are not coming back or anytime soon. And my encouragement, it will be right now the same thing I will always say, and I'll try to end on somewhat of a positive note: prepare. Just prepare. I find personally that when you're prepared, there creates a general sense of comfort. I've had a look at different insurance options. I'm going to be doing a video soon talking about how to prepare for end of life. A lot of people don't even want to discuss that, but I find when you have certain things lined up, it makes the future seem a little more manageable. Of, okay, if X, Y, and Z happens, at least we have a plan. And that's my encouragement now, is prepare as much as you can. I'm not by any means advocating going out and maxing out your credit card and buying things you don't need. But if you can get food, water, lined up, medical supplies. And one of the things I often get asked is, hey, I'm on a limited budget, or I have health problems, or I'm unemployed. What do I do? And that is a very, very, very tough question to answer. But what what is within your means, whatever you can do. If I were in a position where I'm saying, okay, I got to go down a list, what are the priorities? I would simply start with food. Rice and beans. I think you can get those in stores now. I haven't been to the stores in so long, but they're not overly expensive compared to a lot of food. If you can get those lined up, if you can then, whatever you can do to store water, or at least buy, something like a $20 filter. I know Sawyer, the mini Sawyers, they have those for $20, and they can process, I believe, up to 100,000 gallons of water, as long as it's, at least pre-filtered. Begin to prepare what you can now. Do I think, everything is going to go to hell in a handbasket this fall? I don't think so. But again, if the last several months are an indicator of what we can expect, and it doesn't look like things are improving at the moment, just prepare. That's all I can say. Now, if you do have questions, feel free to email me, cityprepping@gmail.com. I'll do what I can to answer it. I've been backed up here lately, but I know a lot of people are feeling, how should we say it, uncertain right now. But feel free to reach out, cityprepping@gmail.com. In the comments section below, if there's any videos you want me to discuss for what you feel or may not be coming over the next few months and how to prepare, feel free to share that on in the comments section below. I'll try to read them. I'll try to see and pull out ideas of what the community wants to hear, and getting you ready to prepare for what's coming. But my final word is this: stay encouraged. I know it seems really dark right now, but again, I'm lining things up the best I can for the next few months. Beyond that, it's really out of my control at that point. All we can do is prepare. But I think we'll get through it as a nation. I think we do have some dark times ahead of us, without a doubt. Again, with the election season coming up, there's going to be challenges that we'll face regardless of who wins. Again, I don't like to get political on this channel, but it doesn't matter. I think at this point, who wins? I mean, what this nation faces, no matter how strong the leader is, it's going to be challenging for any leader to take on what's happening next and what we're going through. So prepare all you can at this season. As always, stay safe out there.